What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another video. It took a couple of days, went to the beach, and now we are back in action for another round. And there's a lot to dig into today because this is a follow-up to last week's video where I went through my top 5 most anticipated smaller games of the year. The ones that might not be getting the headlines, but that are absolutely worth your time. And at the end of that video, I said that this week I'd be going through the bigger games that I'm looking forward to, the ones that are grabbing the headlines and that are considered some of the most anticipated games of the year. Now, you might notice a couple of the bigger games are going to be missing from my list. Black Ops 6, for example, is not necessarily one of my personal top 5 most anticipated games, even though I'm absolutely going to be playing it at launch. It's going to be on Game Pass this year, which is a big benefit, so that's going to be up there as well. Then you've got stuff like Madden that's obviously going to be selling tons and tons of copies, but that I'm just not personally interested in. This is a personal list of things that I'm just hyped up for. And on top of that, I'm throwing in expansions and remasters too. There's no real qualifier for what I would consider to be most anticipated game material. It doesn't have to be a brand new, net new game. It's something that I'm going to be buying and that I'm looking forward to playing when it comes out, whether that's a DLC or a remaster or a remake or a brand new game. So with that being said, we've got some great games to talk about and some awesome stuff to play over the next couple of months. So let's go ahead and get into it. Here are my top 5 most anticipated big games for the rest of 2024. First up, we have a follow-up to one of my favorite games on the Xbox 360. I love me some Warhammer 40k Space Marine, and Space Marine 2 is on the way. And this is one that if you're into that just ripping and tearing Doom-style gore combined with the lore of Warhammer, it's going to be right up your alley, but you don't have to necessarily be into Warhammer to really enjoy and appreciate what this game brings. The way that I describe it is like Gears of War combined with Doom with this underlying Imperial kind of tone. You're going through pretty much ripping and tearing aliens, and that's really all you need to know. Now, if you want to get deeper into the lore of stuff, you've got Captain Titus, who's been demoted down to Lieutenant Titus after the events of the first game, and you're trying to basically regain your reputation and fight your way back up while also defending against this giant horde of aliens. Now, if you played Space Marine 1, the weapons are a big part of the game, and yes, the chainsword is making a comeback, as it should with anything related to Space Marine, including Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, which is a fantastic boomer shooter if you haven't played it. But Space Marine 2 is doing something different. On top of a Call of Duty style loadout system, which is going to be super handy for the multiplayer side of things, you've also got this class system that's coming into the game that gives you different ways to experience the world of Space Marine. So if you like to do stuff from a bit of a range, you can be kind of a sniper class. If you want to be a healer, you can do that. If you want to go rip and tear and be the assault class, you can do that too. A couple of different options there if you want to play through with a friend, and I would assume this definitely increases the replay value of the game in the long run too. Now, if you guys have been around on the channel for a while, you'll know that I love some multiplayer action. I've always been a big fan of the multiplayer side of things, going back all the way to my childhood. It's just a part of the way that I play games, and Space Marine 2 is bringing an entire suite of multiplayer options where Space Marine 1 had none. Now, the big question is going to be how they translate that gameplay over into a multiplayer experience, because when you think about Space Marine 2, it's definitely not going to be that Call of Duty or Battlefield or any of that. I think this is going to feel more like Gears of War, which is definitely not a bad thing. It just might not be mainstream in the way that the developers might hope that it is. Because if you played Gears of War, there's a lot of running and gunning, a lot of barrel stuffing, but it's not quite that same kind of arcade feel where you can just pick up and play and be good. You definitely have a skill level you've got to kind of hit to be good in Gears multiplayer. So I'm excited to see how Space Marine 2 tries to kind of work that gameplay style in, while also catering to fans that might be brand new, picking it up for the first time, and trying not to die in these online lobbies. And even though I've played the original, it's going to be me who's trying not to die. Next up, we have Diablo IV Vessel of Hatred, and if you've been playing Diablo IV since the game came out, a lot has changed. They've rebalanced some of the classes, and of course, they're always toying around with the balance, but the different seasons have brought new mechanics, new ways to play that have really made it a much more robust kind of experience. If you haven't played Diablo IV in a while, even if you don't buy Vessel of Hatred, there is still a ton of new content to go back and check out. But Vessel of Hatred is the first big expansion for the game that brings a new class called Spiritborn into the game that's totally net new to the Diablo world. Although people have been asking for paladins for a while, they're doing something brand new that kind of looks like a Necro Druid according to the comments. Now, I'll be the first to say, I am not the hardcore Diablo player. I log in, I kill stuff, I have a good time. The grind is what keeps me playing, so before you put your comment about how I'm wrong and should be totally disappointed in what they're showing, I'm not gonna be. Just gonna have a good time with it. On top of that, they've got a new region coming into the game, which is Nahantu from Diablo II. It's a jungle region, so there's a new look, but of course a new region to explore is always appreciated. There's nothing quite like uncovering new areas of a brand new map. I love doing that. And then of course you've got the story, which is focusing on Neyrelle from the main Diablo IV campaign. And if you've seen the trailer so far, it's probably one of my favorite Blizzard trailers that I've ever seen to date. When it comes to World of Warcraft or Overwatch or Diablo or anything they make, if those trailers don't get you hyped up, I don't know what will. For the next game, we're staying in that kind of fantasy mindset, but changing it up with Dragon Age: The Veilguard. And this is one that's taken me by surprise this year, because I am not typically a Dragon Age guy. I've never played Origins, never played Inquisition. It's never really been my cup of tea, but my gaming taste over the past 10 years or so, you know, roughly about the amount of time it's been since Inquisition dropped, has changed a lot, which means this might be something that I'm actually into now. I'm recording this a couple of days after we got the cinematic trailer that showed off the release date of October 31st, and the trailer itself is awesome. And again, I'm not somebody who's deep into the lore, so you can tell me in the comments if there are things that stand out that I should know, but I'm very excited about how cinematic this looks. I know in the past the gameplay has really been the focus, which I'm not saying that it won't be for the Veilguard, because no matter how good a game's cinematics are, if the gameplay is bad, well, that'll impact the game. But so far the game looks like it delivers on that big cinematic kind of experience. And even thinking back to Diablo IV, one of my favorite parts of playing through that campaign was the giant battle scene, which was awesome. I want more of that, and it looks like Dragon Age: The Veilguard could be delivering on that kind of quality. When it comes to the gameplay, things look very different than they have in the past. It's a lot more action-focused, seems very quick, and it's going to be more of that Witcher-style gameplay that I think a lot of third-person action games tend to deliver on these days, which is great for somebody like me that's brand new to the series. Inquisition always felt kind of heavy whenever I would go back to try and play it, which I think I haven't done in a couple of years, but now the Veilguard seems like it's going to be much more welcoming for those newcomers, which is probably the intent, to try and reinvigorate this kind of aging franchise that they've got on their hands. I think what I'm trying to say is I'm looking at this as an action-adventure game that happens to be a Dragon Age game and not necessarily a new Dragon Age game. Because that doesn't mean anything to me, but hey, as a potential new fan of the series, I'm definitely interested in seeing what BioWare has been working on. Next up, the surprising return of a classic, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. And if you haven't played Dead Rising, this is kind of the zombie game that kicked off just having fun with killing zombies. I mean, Capcom really knocked it out of the park with Dead Rising, but especially with Dead Rising 2. That's the one that really got me in. And I have the best memory of renting Dead Rising 2 from Redbox the day the games were added to Redbox, which of course ironically shut down this year. So that's how long that's been since I played Dead Rising 2, but it's nice to see the original finally getting some love. And this is the game that introduced Frank West to the world, where he was going in, reporting on this zombie outbreak that they were having in Willamette, Colorado. Now Capcom is calling this a remaster, not a remake, so set those expectations properly, but I would say looking at the gameplay, this is really pushing the boundary of being a remake. I mean, they've improved the textures, they rebuilt the entire game in the RE engine, so it's not even something that's just got a fresh coat of paint over what the old game really was. It really is going to feel like something that's brand new, which I think is going to be great for fans that are diving in for the first time, just having heard about Dead Rising, but they've never gone back to play the originals. Now, is this game going to be breaking any new ground in any kind of big way? Not really, but in terms of reviving a classic, no pun intended because of the zombie stuff, I think this is shaping up to be a really impressive remaster, borderline remake kind of game, and I think right now Dead Rising as a franchise just needs some life behind it. Because Dead Rising 5 was going to be set in Mexico, they canned that project, we had Dead Rising 4, which was generally considered fine, but we haven't really seen a whole lot over the last couple of years. And so if setting a new start and putting out a remaster of the original is going to be marking a new entry in a new generation of Dead Rising games, I'm totally down. And to round out today's video, we've got Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I have been a longtime fan of Assassin's Creed, going all the way back to the first game on the PlayStation 3. And I've played, I believe, every major Assassin's Creed game all the way through up until Mirage last year. And they've all got something to bring to the table, but there have been some that have been better than others. But Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla were the three games that really kind of redefined what Assassin's Creed was. It went from being these open-world action-adventure games to something that was really more of an open-world RPG, with huge skill trees, really deep combat, and tons of exploration. I mean, you could put hundreds of hours into these games. Then last year we had Mirage, which was fine. It got back to the roots of what Assassin's Creed was and kind of felt like more of a standalone DLC. It was only $50 when it came out, had about a 20-hour story. It was good. I wouldn't consider it great though. Now we've got Assassin's Creed Shadows that's getting back to be a mainline major entry in the Assassin's Creed franchise that probably is going to feel more like those open world RPGs, but you've got different ways to play the game. There are two main characters you can choose to play as, which are Nawe and Yasuke, and you can switch back and forth between them depending on how you feel like experiencing the game at that time. Nawe is going to be more of that traditional assassin kind of gameplay, which just so happens to lend itself to the ninja kind of style, where she's running across rooftops, parkouring, sneaking through grass, trying to be as sneaky as possible, and of course, hitting that hidden blade along the way. Then Yasuke is going to be bringing more of that open world style combat from Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, and if you look at the gameplay, you are fighting as a samurai. It's slow, methodical, you pick your hits, it looks like a good time. Now the cool thing is, if you prefer one over the other, if you like the more traditional assassin stuff rather than the more in-depth combat stuff, you can choose to play as one or the other through the entire game or switch back and forth. Whatever you want to do, they're giving you the option. I think that for me, the most exciting thing about Assassin's Creed Shadows is that this is finally the Japanese Assassin's Creed game that people have been asking for since Assassin's Creed 3. That game proved that Assassin's Creed could be international and they could take it everywhere. And after Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, all being set around the world in different time periods, anything is possible, and we're finally getting one that people have been asking for a decade or more. But there they are, my top 5 most anticipated big games for the rest of the year. And if you missed last week's video, I talked about those 5 smaller games as well that should definitely be on your wish list. So go back, check that out if you haven't had the chance to watch it. I thought it was a pretty good video and you guys seem to enjoy it as well. And these are all just my personal picks, so I would love to hear from you. What games have your eye? What are you picking up for the rest of the year? And what should I have on my list as well? Would love to know your thoughts. But as always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and if you made it all the way to the end of the video and you're brand new here, hit that subscribe button for videos like this every week and gaming news shorts throughout the week to keep you in the loop. And I'll catch you on the next one.